Okay, I think we can begin. So welcome everybody to this latest Upskilling webinar entitled Why Reskilling Can Become Your Most Effective Tech Talent Acquisition Strategy. Now, we've got a very exciting discussion lined up for you guys today. Before we jump into that and introduce our panelists, I've got two very quick housekeeping things to get through. Number one, this webinar is being recorded. So keep an eye out on your inbox tomorrow. We'll be sharing that recording link with you there. You can share it with your colleagues. And number two, there will be time for a Q&A session at the end of today's discussion. So if you've got questions for our panelists, please feel free to drop them in there. We'll get to them at the end of the discussion. So on that, I think I might introduce our panelists. So I might go from left to right and start with you, Brianna. So thank you, good morning, and thanks for joining us. Can you give us a few words about yourself and your background?
Yeah, absolutely. Good morning. Thank you for having me. I have been a tech recruiter for 14 years now. I've had 3 separate companies. My last company was an agency, also in sexy tech, and it was actually sold a year ago in just about a couple days, which is crazy, to a firm, the fintech company. And then I have Thriversity, which is what I like to say is upholding the gold standard of recruiting via embedded and doing other fun things there strategically. And then Thriversity is actually teaching, is training not only recruiters the full cycle, which is really fun, but hiring manager training, inclusive sourcing training, stuff like that. We're trying to tackle the industry just via training and awareness, because as we all know, there is no standards in recruiting. So we're trying to help fix that, to help battle the talent acquisition space altogether.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And congratulations on the sale. So thank you. And moving right along, Ryan, good morning to you as well. Thanks so much for joining us. Can you give us a bit of background about yourself?
Yeah, thanks for having me. My name is Ryan Agresta. I've been a hiring manager in tech for about 10 years. I built teams at Amazon, at Uber when it was a privately held company. And then I joined an early stage startup called Convoy, where I was part of it growing from 20 people to 1,200 people in about 4 years. And so sort of at every stop in my journey, got extensive experience as a hiring manager and felt a lot of the pain points of hiring, specifically in tech. A little under 3 years ago, I started my own company called Candidate, which is a tech platform for personal referrals. We're venture backed. And over those years, we've now worked with hundreds of companies hiring for full-time roles in tech, ranging from 2 founders hiring their first FTE all the way through even a couple of publicly traded companies. And so kind of culminating in a lot of experience, I'm excited to share a little bit today about hiring and reskilling.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, Jacob, thank you very much for joining us. Can you give us a bit of background about yourself?
So I was basically hiring people mostly in tech for the last 13 years. And, due to the process was even not only not standard, but also not effective, I founded DevSkiller to resolve my pain and ensure that this process works more smoothly. Recently, I'm more focused on reskilling and upskilling. So not only hiring external candidates, but also like leveraging and growing the talent pool that you have currently at your company. So yeah, that's about me.
Thank you very much, all of you. A lot of experience that I hope we can tap into today with our webinar. Now, before we get started, I thought I'd just take us through a little bit of background and some statistics about basically the reason behind this topic that we're going to discuss today. And obviously, we're all well aware that there's a talent shortage, a tech talent shortage. Looking at the statistic, 5 jobs for every 1 software developer, like somehow the math doesn't quite add up. But I mean, it goes kind of a step further as well, in the sense that we don't only have this talent shortage, we also have a changing market in terms of the skills that are on the market at the moment. So we're looking at, by the 2025, only a couple of years away, basically 40% of the core technical skills are expected to change, which is sort of adding fuel to this fire of this talent shortage is only getting worse. And what does that result in? Obviously, people are starting to freak out. And we can see here 79% of CEOs are worried about the gap and the widening gap with their existing skills and what they need to fill, basically. And this is kind of where we're going to come in and where we're sort of noticing changes in the industry as well. Some of the biggest companies out there are spending big money on reskilling initiatives, training initiatives, basically to plug in this skills gap. And I think that's right where we're going to sort of kick things off. So I'll just stop sharing my screen for now, and I will launch a poll, which is going to appear on your screen in a moment. Let's go launch. Okay, and it should appear on your screen now. And it basically says, which best describes your organization? And the options we have here, we've never tried reskilling in the past. We are reskilling, but it has not been effective, and we have successfully introduced a reskilling initiative, or other, obviously. So maybe one of these ones don't apply to you. And what we want to do today is look at the responses that are in here. We're going to kind of tailor our conversation based around these responses, and sort of look at the different stages, the different profiles, basically, companies that are undertaking reskilling initiatives. So I think I've got all the answers submitted. So I'll end the poll and share the results. So they should appear on your screen now. So we do have a bit of a mixed bag, but we have a sort of equal tie between we have never tried reskilling in the past or other. And we also have some votes for the two other options, which has not been effective or we successfully introduced it, which is really good because we want to kind of cover the entire process, right? Like all different company profiles and stages of what you guys are doing. So with that, and thank you for the responses there, guys. With that, I might jump into our first question, and I'll start with you, Brianna. And I was wondering if you could sort of just give us some insight or some advice for people who are about to kick off a reskilling initiative. So like, where would you start, basically, if you were to kick off a reskilling initiative at your organization or one that you've worked with in the past?
Yeah, so I love the subject. To me, I feel like whenever you say like scrappy and startup, it's like we're just used to reskilling because it's more of a business need. So when I would think of the initiative, you have to bring forth the business need. What does the business need today? What do we need in 3 months, 6 months, a year, whatever. And then also let the team know, here's what we're going to hire. Here's why we need to hire. Here's maybe where we're a little bit slower. Because if you have really great employees, they're going to want to help you and join in. And a lot of people, I feel, don't really speak up as to like perhaps this role that they really wanted, but they didn't think they were qualified for or could ever get into. So I think the conversation starts there, essentially the ROI on it, and then ask. So I do something that we call spotlight chats. So every month during in all hands, we have like one person that we just pick a value from the company and say, all right, which value resonates with you the most? And we have a conversation and people get to know them a lot more. And in that, actually, I have had some interesting jobs changes or reskilling, as we say, in those chats. So for example, someone in finance, turns out she actually went to school for marketing. And she had always wanted to get back into marketing. And I had like literally no idea. So when you're hiring people, you hire them for the job you need today, right? So you don't talk about their past or their passion or anything like that, unfortunately. So yeah, I think it goes to the conversation first and foremost. And then you have to, of course, then you got to do the job descriptions. Hey, this is what it's actually going to require. Here's how we're going to back and train you. Here's the transition. Here's how long I expect you to get rocking and rolling on this. Also, I think as a company too, it's really great vibe-wise to let them know, like, look, we have all of these openings and I prefer to hire within. I prefer to promote from within. You guys are loyal. And I believe that we can either upskill or reskill to get you there, because I think a culture ad is just so much more important than the one that actually is like doing that job, like perhaps better, because I think you can get people there. And then the mentorship and everything that comes with it is super important. So that initiative I love.
Yeah. Not to mention having to sort of get new people up to speed with your company culture and stuff like that. If they're already within the organization, that takes a long time. That's already taken care of, basically. So you can just focus on the skills really to deliver the job. Maybe Ryan, I'll go a step further. If we're talking about starting and where to start, basically. But maybe what are some of the things that you should avoid, basically, to avoid mistakes along the way?
Yeah, I think that was really well said, Brianna. And what I heard there is you're understanding your business needs, you're understanding your employee skills, and you're understanding their sort of professional passions or interests. And the intersection of those three is where you can start. If you're doing that in a deliberate way, in either a data-driven or a very personal way, I think you'll avoid mistakes. So examples of mistakes that can be preempted if you're doing that effectively. Investing in reskilling when it won't have a significant impact on your business, when it's something that solves a short-term need versus a longer-term need, or turning an employee to a new area that ultimately they're not that passionate or interested in. Because in that case, you're likely to invest in reskilling and then they leave, or they're unhappy, or worst case combination, some combination of sort of both of those. So really, when you can find that perfect intersection of the business need, the employee skills, and the employee interests, that's what'll really prevent those mistakes from happening.
Yeah, for sure. Alrighty. Well, yeah. Thanks very much for that. I will, move along with you, Kubra, and sort of we understand this where to start and things to avoid, and basically getting the employee aligned like with their goals and the company goals is very important. But from your experience, maybe you can speak on some of the challenges that you've experienced yourself or heard from with customers or people within the industry with reskilling employees.
So if you ask about challenges, I was focused on figuring out these challenges for the last 5 years, because before we kicked in support or kind of a tool for reskilling initiatives at DevSkiller, I talked to many companies with different sizes, and the one challenge that was basically common to all companies that failed, and basically 90% of the companies failed, was that because they were not able to have and keep the up-to-date relevant data they wanted to use. So if you're talking about the reskilling, that is just an initiative, which means that you are not making it hard to employees to reskill themselves. That's the one thing. But if you want to support the reskilling with suggesting the employees how they can grow and where they can find new challenges, then you need to know what's the as is state in your company. And basically, if the employees that you have, they don't believe that it's you are doing this whole inventory of the current states for their benefits, they won't keep the data. They just will fill something, they will fill some forms, some spreadsheets, but they will do that just to get rid of the emails that are notifying them that they need to do that. But basically, usually after the first, let's say, set of filling in all those gaps, filling what I know, what I can teach others, etc., that was nothing was happening. So the management of the company was extremely happy that they know the current state, but there were no benefits for the employees. So the next time they ask, okay, now we need to have this data up to date, employees were saying, why should I do that? I have nothing for that. So that's the first thing, and the first challenge that was very, very common. So not employees not trusting that it's for them, so they don't want to invest their time, even it's time during the working hours to fill it. And the second challenge I would mention here is that the companies were trying to be too detailed. So they were figuring out the skills, and they end up with 700 different skills and competencies that the people should fill in. And of course, no one wants to do that. And the question is if there is a value, if we are getting to this, having a buy-in from the employees, do I see the value in filling in 700 or 800 skills if no one can manage that because it's too detailed? So I would say having a buy-in and having the right level of details are the two biggest challenges that were basically even not. They were not able to launch the product, the reskilling initiative. Just it was dying after 6 months because no one was using that.
Yeah. Thank you. And Ryan, maybe in your experience, what are some of the challenges that you've encountered or heard of?
Yeah, I agree that oftentimes sort of getting that process started, understanding the current skill set and the data can be a real challenge. I often have heard sort of after that leaders encountering some form of what I would call analysis paralysis, kind of trying to understand, what's the trade-off here? Is it better to hire someone new or to reskill? And I think a common question or sort of hurdle to overcome there is, can I have someone, potentially with limited experience in that area, right? If you're reskilling someone on your team, that will often mean they haven't performed deeply in a given functional area. And what I have encouraged leaders to think through there is there's going to be risk to having someone who's new to a given area, but there's also a risk in hiring someone new. When you have someone on your team who you're reskilling, they know your business, you know them, know who they are as leaders and as performers. And so being willing to sort of make that bet, right? And not falling victim to that analysis paralysis of getting into the internal debate of hiring someone new. You have someone talented on your team, you have an opportunity to invest in them, go ahead and take it. And then I think once leaders make that decision, of course, there's always going to be a challenge related to where or how do I invest, right? There's a growing number of platforms out there. And oftentimes they require an investment. And so it can always be a challenge. Luckily, I think there's also a growing data set out there to tell you what the platforms are that have been successful.
Yeah, sort of calculated risks, right? To make your decision. I'm not sure, Brianna, do you have anything to add here as we move along?
I was loving all this. I was so excited over it.
To see you sitting there like, oh no,
what I think is important, what people want right now is they want to feel heard. They want to be important. They're tired of being just a number. And in the recruiting aspect is candidates ask us a lot, what are their training programs? That was never a question for many, many, many years. And so that's definitely the trend. They want to feel well taken care of. So I like to piggyback on some of the stuff that was said. It's like the why behind things. This is why we're doing it and why we care. Something that I tell people within the first week of starting here with me is, look, I would love to koala you, here for years, but I know you're eventually going to leave. I just want to make sure that you leave a better version of yourself. Like, that's what I want to give to you as my gift, So I think as long as that's like embedded in the culture, like one of our values is like live in your genius. So we have them take a quick assessment of like, what do they actually thrive in? And a lot of people are surprised. So then how do those skills, can they relate throughout the organization? And I think also setting those up really helps people, understand. And I did also want to talk about the one, I think, problem that I have seen is setting people up for success is so important. So like when I was talking about making sure the leaders understand, the people have to also understand, well, okay, if I'm going to go into marketing today, like, does that mean I'm now in charge of marketing? Like if we didn't have a marketing department? Well, no, but, we're definitely going to look at you for promotions, but we will need a head of marketing, so I think that those things just have to be talked about because like the elephant in the room kind of kills everyone. Assumptions kill, so I think that's super important.
Yeah. I mean, we're doing webinars. This is our first one for a couple of months. We took a break over summer, but we're talking a lot about basically especially for developers when they're choosing a company, they're not just looking, obviously everyone just takes salary out of the equation because salary is just like, everyone cares about salary. But the next one is always like my career development, like where I can grow and learning opportunities and stuff like that. So it's just more and more important, not just, alone in tech, it's sort of across the board. So it's becoming, critical basically that you provide that sort of framework for people to sort of grow within their role and potentially reach out into different areas that maybe they didn't think they were going to kick off when they started. So thank you. I might stay with you actually though, Brianna, because we're kind of moving away from these challenges and where to start and stuff like that. And perhaps this is a challenge in itself when we're talking about buy-in from your organization, like in top down. We were talking about this a little bit before we went live, but I wondered like if we could ask you like, how do you get buy-in from your organization, organizations that you work with to kick off such an initiative like reskilling?
I think this goes back to data. And this is also always a problem because not a lot of people have data. So you have to know, how long does it take to hire our roles? How long does it take for people to live, sleep, and breathe our culture, our mission, understand our business? So like you have to really keep good notes on that. So I think when you're talking to, like say your higher ups and execs and you're saying like, look, typically it takes for us to really know their work ethic, their performance, their initiative, do they fit in here? especially remote. I think remote is like extra challenging because you really don't know. You don't see them every day. It takes about at least 3 months to even kind of grasp like, hey, is this going well? So I think you could even say like, look, we could hire someone, maybe get lucky, do it within a month. They start a month later at that, or maybe 2 weeks later, then we have to get them ramped. So it's like it goes back to time, like time kills all deals, right? So it's like, it goes back, hey, what are we doing here? So if you give them the data, it's like, look, this is what we can do, but what if you mentored your person in marketing? What if you kind of got to mold them however you wanted, essentially, right? By reskilling. That's why I tend to take like fresh recruiters because they don't have the bad habits. And so I think that's something interesting in reskilling that we don't talk about a lot is that they're fresh, they're hungry, they're excited, the passion is new. So I think, again, putting all of like, I call it like the Benjamin Franklin clause, the pros and the cons, just putting that really up on like a whiteboard or something and just going for it and being like, okay, does anyone want to tell me why we shouldn't try this first? Why we don't want to take care of our own people first? Again, I think when we're thinking people first, which is, again, very much in trend, I think it's here to stay. That is, again, goes to that huge initiative. And so I think if you keep going back to that data and back to where your company wants to go and wants to be known for, I just feel like it's a no-brainer to say yes to reskilling.
Awesome. Thank you. Cool, but maybe do you have anything to add there?
Yeah, I would say that the very important thing about having a buy-in, especially from the employees, is that they need to trust you, and they need to trust that you are doing it for them as well. So basically, your story and your actions must be credible. And I was talking to companies that were saying, yeah, we want to introduce, the reskilling to help people to grow, to build the talents. And I said, okay, so what's your training budget? Oh, there is no training budget allocated. So like, if I'm an employee and someone say you need to learn these new skills, but like it's up to you how you learn it because we are not going to help you. And I said, okay, so are you, I don't know, at least able to allocate some time they can spend on learning, like during the working hour? No, they should do it after hours. So like this, like they are not able to get any buy-in from the employees because people who said like you are just lying, you are not, authentic, you are not credible. So that's the most important thing. Like if you want to like have this this working in your organization, you need to tell people that it's for them, for the employees. Show them the benefits from this program as soon as possible. So launch these training programs, reskilling programs, and show the cases that, hey, here is I don't know, Julia, she was working in the customer support and now she's working in, I don't know, development or in marketing or anywhere else. But it's working. We have the proof that this program is working. And so not having a budget and saying that we want to develop people is like the great thing to not launch it properly.
Awesome. Ryan, do you have anything to add here, or can we move along?
I think both of those are really well said. I would probably just summarize, like, you're helping the team understand where good for them, good for the employees meets good for the business. If you're able to really articulate that, I think you'll have a lot of buy-in from the organization when initiating some of this reskilling.
Awesome. Okay. I was moving along kind of this path that we've gone on from talking about the different stages of reskilling and where you could be. But also we kind of touched on it there in terms of from an employee perspective. And Kubra, I might throw this one back to you, but from the employee's perspective, like what role do you think that reskilling plays in sort of creating this employee value proposition and employee retention, keeping employees, at your company?
So here I would like at first agree to what Brianna said earlier, that more and more people are asking about how you can develop in the company. So I wouldn't say it applies to all departments, but definitely if we're talking about anyone that is like close or touches the digital skills, these people know they need to develop and they need to learn. The other thing is that sometimes you have people who are I wouldn't say lost, but they don't know what they want to do. Like sometimes when we are hiring someone, and that is something that Brianna says people are not doing, we are doing that. So when we are hiring for a role, we are asking for the directions this person wants to develop, or the things that this person wants to do, etc. And we used to have many such situations when we are hiring, for example, a project manager, and we're asking, okay, so the project management is of course your area of the expertise, but is it something that you want to do like for a living, etc. And say, no, I'm doing that because I'm good at it, but I love the data. I want to be a data analyst or something. So you say, okay, so like that's we are hiring this person to be a project manager right now, but we already have a reskilling track for this person. Sometimes we have people who are just burned out and they don't know what they want to do. They just don't want to do something that they are doing right now. And that's it. And I believe that when we are talking about the employee proposition, is that you need to build this kind of a relationship with the employee when they know that if they will be burned out, you will help them to find a new job or the new place inside the company. Because in IT, we ran some survey like many years ago, and we were trying to figure out what's the main reason people are leaving the job. And the salary was just like, I don't know, 15% of the things. And almost half of the people were leaving the job, were just quitting and changing the job because they wanted to do something new. So for example, let's say I'm a senior Java developer and I don't want to code in Java anymore. I hate Java. I want to do something else. I want to, I don't know, manage the cloud. And my manager is telling me, okay, but you are a great Java developer. We need you. We need this Java developer. We cannot afford losing such great Java developers. So like, please stay in this role. But I don't want. So I'm leaving this company and they are losing great Java developer. And on the other hand, they need to hire in a few months also like someone to manage the cloud, where I could be the great person. And I believe that people, especially in IT, are aware of that. So they are. If you tell them, okay, if you will be burned out, we won't leave you alone. We'll help you and we'll find you this place internally. That's something that is definitely a value for the employees, right? They know that it's not that you are hiring them just for this role. Like Brianna said, like we're hiring for a role, but it's great to know that if I will stop loving this role, it's still possible to develop and stay in the company, especially if people like the company. And most of the people who are leaving because they don't want to code in Java, they wanted to do machine learning, they really liked the company that they were working in. And I have one very good case of the fail, and it was really like a huge fail in the reskilling initiatives. And that was a friend of mine, and she was working in HR. She was working in HR and she was working in employer branding. She was very good at it. And it was an IT company. So she was just going to all of the conferences, IT conferences to pitch the company, say, hi, you should work for us. Please send us the resume, etc. And she was just, attending all of the talks. And after like few months in this role, like maybe a year and a half, she really enjoyed the topics. So not only the conference because there were cool people, but she really liked to listen what these people are saying. And she was very good at IT after this time because she was, taking part in many interviews. She was taking part in many conferences, meetups, talks, etc. I said, okay, I want to be a Java developer right now, junior developer. That's what I want to do. And of course, her company told her, no, you are an HR woman. You are not what developer? No, do your job right now. You are great at employer branding. Said, okay, thank you. And then next day, she just, throw the papers and she moved to the other company. And it was around 2016, something like this. Today, she is a team leader and a senior developer, very good developer in one of the very, very good companies. Global is basically a TomTom. She is a team leader at TomTom right now, doing, implementing all of the maps and other stuff. And that was a huge fail. And I believe there are more and more such things. if she will know that, okay, we'll help you, we'll support you in doing this stuff, we'll help you to build this. Build these skills and become this Java developer, she will be even more in love with this company, and now she's in love with TomTom. So that's something that I believe is one of the most important things to cover.
I think we touched on it in our socials promoting this webinar, the concept of hidden gems or hidden superheroes, places you wouldn't even think to look, like HR, an employer branding specialist that in 4 years or 5 years becomes a senior Java developer. It's often it's just a matter of asking and looking, right, to uncover these people. Thank you, Kuba. Ryan, I don't know if you'd like to sort of extend on that. I mean, employee value proposition sort of goes hand in hand, right, with retention. But in your experience, what can you add to this?
Yeah, something we're touching on here is that employees, I think more than ever, want to have a workplace that provides more than just a paycheck. So that's a meaningful work, culture, team, and a lot of what we see kind of covered out there right now, the Great Resignation, war for talent, it doesn't really go deeply into how do I, as a leader, retain employees? How do I take my average tenure from X to X plus 5 years? Because if you can do that, you don't have to worry about hiring. And when you look at reskilling and sort of showing your current team, we want to invest in you, I think it's one of the best ways to keep people engaged in the long term. Something I just touched on, right, is people start to feel stale in a given role. And you can really solve for both that problem and also growth opportunities, which is another one of the most common reasons for people leaving, purely just via reskilling. Those are things that you can really, I would say, add to your employee value prop, both in the hiring process, but then also in the retention process when you're thinking about reskilling.
Yeah, for sure. Brianna, would you like to add anything here, or should we move on?
Yeah, Kuba and Ryan, you guys just nailed it. So I was just writing some things down because I'm like, oh my gosh, why is reskilling not in a job description? I don't think I've ever seen it in a job description, but that absolutely is a benefit. And I'm even thinking reskilling equals retaining. That's very simple, right? And so it's not, because we're talking about it. It's not normal. And so I just love that. And I love your Java developer story, your friend's story. That's amazing. So I also think this kind of goes back to the war on specialist versus generalist. So I tend to like generalists because I have at my team, I have lots of Swiss Army knives, is what I call them. And so I'm like, okay, great. You can do this, you can do that. Hey, maybe for a couple months you're focusing over here. And now let's keep you fresh and let's go over here. Because again, it goes back to that stale aspect of things. And if you keep them moving, it just brings great energy. And that always goes back to the business. Your business thrives more when your employees are happy and when they're excited and when they take ownership in it. I love that. I love everything that was just said. This was great.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just have one more thing I want to add to that, because I was basically, I believe that we were more focused on the high-tech jobs, so developers, etc. These are people who are basically, if they quit the company, they find a job in 15 minutes or something like this. There was even this joke about to the software developers talking to each other. Hey, I've heard that you were fired. How was it? They say, oh, guy, it was the worst 30 minutes of my life. And being unemployed. So that's it. But this reskilling and this value proposition for employees, I believe it's even more important for the regular jobs. So the jobs that are not requiring from you some extra skills, etc. And these are more regular jobs. And if you're working, in a factory and you are building furnitures, I believe that reskilling for such people is even more important, especially if it's I don't know, a small city and 80% of the people work in one factory. then I believe that for them, being told that, okay, if we'll automate what we are doing right now, we'll still find you a place and you won't be fired, will be good, because there are many different jobs where people are very, very afraid of the upcoming, revolution, automation, and they are afraid that they will lose their jobs. So I believe for such areas, reskilling can be a game changer in choosing, an employer. Because having this one, as you, Brian, mentioned, retention and kind of a retention guarantee for these people can be really a deal breaker.
Yeah, it comes back to what we started off with the presentation at the beginning. It's not just the fact that there's this skills shortage; it's how quickly skills are developing and changing. Even people that feel comfortable today, that in 6 months' time, a year's time, that's their skill set is becoming less and less, relevant. So it couldn't be more true, Kuba, for sure. Alrighty. So I do have a final question here, actually, from what we've got planned. I also have seen a couple of questions coming into the Q&A, or one. But if anyone does have questions you'd like to ask our panelists, please fire them in there, and we'll get to them right after this. But Brianna, I'll come back to you, actually, and looking ahead at the future. So we've kind of basically established that reskilling maybe perhaps is not a concept that, is that prevalent right now, or people are maybe overlooking or, not thinking about it at all. But how do you see it in the future? Where do you see reskilling and where it fits in tech talent acquisition moving forward?
I think it's a have to. I think that if you don't, you're going to get in a lot of trouble. I think profits will drop, because naturally what we've seen is salaries go up and up and up and up and up. And you can't, it's not sustainable. I mean, it's just not. Now everyone wants bells and whistles times 10, so it's it's just not, we can't do it. Not to mention, we're still not even having enough people get their CS degree. So that's its own separate, issue. So from the recruiter side, what is frustrating to me, would love your guys' take on this, is if someone's looking for a front-end developer, for example, and they're like, oh, we use Angular. I'm like, great. So I can send you someone with React if they want to use Angular too. No, only Angular. And I'm like, this is bizarre to me. What do you mean? How long? So this role's been open for 6 months. You say you need them. You don't really need them then, because you can easily train someone in a month or less, they're talented. So it's mind-boggling. So I think it's a must. I think a lot of tech companies are going to get in a lot of trouble. I even see it, C# is one of the top 4 languages, in the world. And I mean, Microsoft uses it, right? But the startups I work with, nope, can't touch C#, won't do it. But it's you have tons of talented people over at Microsoft. You could easily go do that. So it's frustrating from my side. So I can only imagine as an org, if I'm actually need developers, there's just no way. The product's not going to get out. The features aren't going to get done. It's a have to.
Yeah, for sure. Ryan, what's your take looking forward?
Yeah, I totally agree. It's the Bureau of Labor has said, and this is just in the US, that we'll have a shortage of over 1 million software engineers in the next, I believe it's 4 years. I think a lot of employers probably already feel that shortage today, and so they think it's going to get even steeper. And what we have to do is figure out, how do we turn front-end developers into full-stack developers, and how do we turn people who are passionate and able to do development work into developers. If you are not reskilling, the challenges you have hiring today are only going to be exacerbated. You have to start figuring out how you're going to mitigate your need to hire now. You do that with reskilling, and we're in luck that there's so many more platforms and programs that are coming out that are figuring out how to turn your front-end developers into full-stack developers, or how to turn someone with limited to no computer science knowledge into a developer.
Yeah. It seems to be the case, you started with the statistic of a million, a deficit of 1 million, and as a way of researching webinar topics or content, the DevSkiller, and you're trying to find sort of data to back it up. It just seems like the reports are getting worse and worse. It's not getting any better. So it's it just goes to show we need to start thinking outside the box, right? So yeah, thanks very much, Ryan. Kuba, maybe you could close it off here. What's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so I believe that it's still worth to differentiate the reskilling and upskilling, because some people are saying it's the same, and I believe that basically if you have the great, awesome culture in the company, that it can be the same, but usually it's not. So like with upskilling, it's something that is like a must have. Like Gartner is saying that basically every 3 years, 1/3 of the skills you are using for your job is like changing, and it's becoming a legacy, obsolete, and you need to replace them. Even if you're talking with this like front end stuff, like the new frameworks arrive every week or something like this, right? So that's the one thing. So you need to like continuously develop yourself just to stay up to date. Otherwise, you will be like, end up like banks on a cobble or something like this, and that's the issue. So upskilling, especially around digital skills, is something that you just have to do that, and that's something that is common for the last 20 years. We still need to like upskill ourselves, but with the reskilling. I believe that other research provided by Deloitte, I believe, is saying that in the next couple of years, let's say 10 years, almost 90% of the job positions globally will need some sort of digital skills. So if you, for example, think about the teachers, right? Teachers are like 2 years ago or 3 years ago, they needed how to deal with the chalkboard, blackboard, how to like write, etc. And now the COVID started, and they needed to figure out how to use Zoom, how to use Google Meet, how to use the calendar, how to use the whiteboards, how to use tablet. I don't know, and they needed to learn these skills in 1 day, because they were basically needed to do their jobs, and that will be more and more important for other roles as well. So here the question is, if we're talking about the reskilling or upskilling, that's why I said it's very close. But there are many job roles that are basically dying, so they are replaced by robots and etc. And in such areas, you need to reskill people. Even if you think about customer care, right? More and more people who used to work and they were chatting with customers, they are right now replaced with the bots and with the AI that is talking to people and just answering the questions, providing them with solutions. And if the AI is not able to resolve that, then it's forwarding these people to these customers, to real people. So I would say that for these areas, the reskilling is also a must. But the question is if it will be provided by the companies as a part of employee value propositions, as we mentioned before, or these people will need to reskill on their own. But basically, reskilling is a must. So I believe that no one I have a different opinion here, because there are roles that needs to reskill, and there is no other way here. So that's it. And so that's how I see that. And the question is, if you will be the company that is utilizing these resources and the talents that you have, or you will let these people to learn how my friend did after hours, and then they will join other company as a new the future workforce, right? Because that's what we are talking about. And if you talk about the future workforce, it's basically people with digital skills, and it's even said that in 20 years, every people will need to be able to code, right? Write code, probably not in Java or something like this, but right now it's even if you implement some home automation stuff, you need to use some bricks just to be able to turn on the light, because it's not easy anymore. So yeah, that's what is said. So we'll all need to learn that.
Sure. Okay. Thank you very much. I can see there have been a few questions in Q&A. So what I might do is just sort of read them out, and if one of you feel like taking it, jump onto it. If I don't hear any one of you, I'm just going to assign it to one of you, okay, if that's okay. So first question here is, how do you overcome the old mindset where people only depend on the skills and history that they can see on someone's resume? If you really got to know the person, they are probably capable of doing a few different things well. So how do you overcome dinosaur talent and training mentalities? I'm not sure who'd like to take it. Maybe I'll pick someone. Maybe Kuba, because the camera's on you right now. So would you like to start?
I will tell maybe I will answer this question, but in a different way, because what we realized is that recently, like 2 weeks ago, our CDO was talking to our front-end developer. And he was explaining to Agnieszka how we are going to organize some connection with database. And I said, why are you talking to me like this? I used to work for 5 years as a database administrator. I know all this stuff that you are saying. Okay. And we are a small company. We have 50 people. And even here, it was surprising for him. So I believe that the problem is that even if you look at the resumes, you remember this resume only during the interview. So when you hire someone, you have no idea about the history. So I would say that if we will be looking at people, at our current employees based on their current skills and the history of skills, that would be good enough. Right now, we are just looking at people from the perspective of their current position. So even if you have right now someone who's, working for us in the customer success, you can forget that this person started as a customer support or as a, DevOps person or something like this. So that's the problem. We have no idea about this history and we have no idea about the resume. So if we figure out this one, then we can talk about, the next steps. That's how I would answer that.
Yeah. Even within the same organization, right? If someone's been in this,
exactly,
they're very skilled enough, you might even forget what they originally did in the first place. So it is a good point. I'm not sure if anyone wants to add anything here, or should I move along?
Yeah, I have a quick add there because we're actually doing this right now. Because there's been, I was laughing because there's been many moments I'm like, you did that? Oh my God. And it's almost embarrassing because you're like, wow, you're an employee of mine and I actually didn't know you've done this before. So we're gathering everyone's resumes currently and redoing them, relooking at them, recalibrating their job description correctly to add things again, because like I said, I got a lot of Swiss Army knives, so I want to put all that stuff in there. So then when they're going through performance reviews or just talking to the managers, they understand look, oh yeah, I was responsible for this because I'm good at it. But I think a way to do that is probably through, if you have an ATS, you can start making tags on people's resumes. So if you want to do that right when they, of course, get hired, because then you're going to forget about it, is be like, oh, this person did marketing and tech, and then before they were, in operations, great, So but I think it has to start from the beginning, or it's just one big initiative where you're just going to sweep on through and just see what's going on.
Awesome.
I'll add here that, if you're the job seeker and you're trying to kind of overcome this mindset, I think, first of all, it can be a real challenge. What I've seen individuals do really successfully is understand the skills of the role you're going after, and then really try and market yourself toward those skills, whether that's by updating your resume or in an interview process, providing really tangible examples of times you utilize those skills. Roles where maybe, hey, you're applying for customer success and you don't have direct customer success experience, but you do have support experience. You can highlight the examples in which you've utilized the skills necessary for a success role, both in the resume, but then also when you get that opportunity to talk to the hiring manager, to really highlight yourself in that way.
Yeah, what we are also doing when we are creating and managing this whole taxonomy of the skills, we are caring about the relationships between the skills. It's something that I always explain using the civilization game analogy, because if you play in Civilization and any other game like this, you cannot start building ships from day one. You need to acquire the navigation skill before, and to have a navigation, you need to have a mathematics and paper and writing, etc. And it works the same for the technical skills. So if you know the relationships between the skills, then it's much easier for them to say, okay, so you are not an Angular expert, as Brianna mentioned, but we see that you already know JavaScript, TypeScript, CSS, HTML. So it's much easier for you to acquire Angular, especially if you already code in React, than for someone who are not able to do that. And due to that, we realized that sometimes the reskilling approaches are very surprising to customers. So recently we realized that for one customer, it was much easier to reskill Scrum Master into data scientist than a Python developer. which sounds stupid because like, hey, if you have a Python developer, these people are almost already data scientists. But then we realized that for this customer, being aware of the data and being aware of what is inside the data is more important than like writing a SQL query or writing, a Jupyter network, algorithm to analyze the data, because this data was so like complicated, and all of these statuses they had in this data, etc. That was the problem. And like being able to learn Python is something that if someone is smart, you can do it in a few weeks, right? But being able to understand the business processes in the company and all of the data, KPIs, etc., that are relying underneath this business process, it took years. And that was a surprise for them, for us, and for anyone, even that Scrum Masters who were like, offered like to reskill into the data science. Why? Because you understand the data processes, you know how the churn is calculated, what are the different like segment of the customers, what are the accounts we have, how it's related to each other, etc. And they realize that that's the biggest issue, right, for them. So yeah. Sorry for like this.
No, not at all. Thank you. Yeah, we got two more questions, so I'll move along. This one's from Evelina. Hi, nice to hear you. I have a question. What are the biggest benefits you've experienced from a reskilling initiative? I mean, we've touched on some of them, but perhaps maybe something that we may have missed. Brianna, would you like to start off this one?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is morale. And I think there's also something to be said by employees that are willing to go into war with you. And that's huge. And that kind of gives me the chills, because it's like, that's what it gives them. You empower them by doing that. And again, by investing in them. So yeah, I definitely think a huge culture add.
Yep, sure. Anyone else? Any quick fire benefits you want to fire in here? Cooper or Ryan? Or
I think morale and engagement is first and foremost. I think in addition to that, the kind of speed at which I've seen companies be able to solve their business need. You think like, hey, reskilling someone is going to take time, but you already have someone in place. You already have someone that knows your business, that knows your customers. And because there's so many sort of ways in which to reskill or upskill, I've personally seen the ability to go out and solve whatever that business need is or that problem even faster, because you're not going out, starting a talent search from the beginning, negotiating, waiting for someone to start, ramping them up on your business. So in addition to the morale, I think there's a lot of very tangible business need and sort of revenue problems that can be solved as well.
Yeah, also just piggybacking on what Ryan said, it's I believe easier to predict how long it will take to rescue someone we already have than to like fill in the position from the external candidates, because it's really hard. Sometimes you are able to find someone who is great, but this person has can join your company in 3 or 4 months because it wants to finish some project. So that's the problem. It's like huge unknown when someone will be able to start, how fast this person will be able to onboard in your company, and still it can happen that after 3 months this person will say, okay, that's not the culture I want to work with, so like, thank you very much, bye, and like you start dealing with once again. And with reskilling, I believe it's much more predictable.
Sure.
One more thing to add on that is the halo effect when you're interviewing people. And like, they're promising all these things, you're just loving them. And it's like, they're just professional interviewers. And they come in and then all of a sudden like, okay, well, we're right back to where we started. So not even a fit, but not even like their real like self, and like actually saying, this is what I can do and being able to deliver. Totally different thing. Yeah, that especially works for salespeople. They are great at selling themselves and not necessarily they are great at selling the product that you want to do. So yeah, fully agree with that.
Okay. All right. So last question here, guys. Again, it's I'll just read it out and we'll see who wants to take it first. Question is, what do you believe can have a more positive long-term impact for overcoming the tech talent shortage? Remote hiring, or reskilling, or maybe something else entirely? maybe Brianna, you look like you're unmuted. Would you like to start us off here?
Yeah, so what I've been seeing a lot is that companies are opening offices in other countries. Like we said, we don't have the talent here, so let's go elsewhere. Sometimes it's hard with visas and whatnot. So, if that's what we have to do, then that's what we have to do. But again, I think long term, the reskilling, and there's so many, if we're talking about tech in general, there's so many boot camps right now in every language, everything. So it's like just to not even just say, hey, so-and-so, go take this boot camp really quickly. And like, let's reskill you here. Let's do this. Let's upskill there, So I think long term, you have to do that. But right now, people are trying to solve the problem in other countries.
Sure. Ryan, maybe you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think they're both really important, right? Being open to remote work is allowing employers to tap into whether it's communities or even countries where people didn't have access to some of these roles before. It's important and it shouldn't stop. But when you look at what we talked about earlier, right here in the US, having a shortage of 1 million software developers, you're not going to solve that purely with remote work. We've got to figure out how we teach people, how we either reskill or upskill them. And so while they're both important, I think the reskilling and the upskilling piece is absolutely critical if we're going to close some of these labor shortages. Yeah,
for sure. And then, I mean, obviously, probably a combination. You don't sort of put all of your eggs in one basket. It's going to be an all-in sort of effort, right, to overcome this shortage, this labor shortage. Cool, I can see that you're still muted, so I'll end that Q&A, and that's all the questions in the Q&A, and that's bringing us right about time for the hour mark. So I'd just like to take this opportunity, first of all, to thank our panelists for joining. So Ryan, Brianna, and Kuba, thank you very much for joining. Very interesting conversation, and thank you all of you who joined in to listen today. As I mentioned at the beginning, we'll be sending you the recording to this webinar tomorrow, so keep an eye out on your inbox for that. And yeah, we'll see you guys for our next webinar in the future. So thanks again, guys, and take care.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.